All right, let's take a look at this now. The Women's Legal Center, an African feminist legal organization that advances women's rights and equality through litigation, advocacy, education, research, and training, has ignited national debate in South Africa with the launch of a social campaign. It's called Nxme Him. This civil disobedience campaign calls for the repeal of a section in the Criminal Procedure Act that criminalises naming an accused rapist before they have pleaded in court. To share more about this campaign is Advocate Bronwyn Pithi, who is the lawyer leading the case that is challenging the constitutionality of this law. Advocate, thank you for joining us. How are you this morning?
Very well, thank you, Sanda. Thanks very much for having the Women's Legal Centre on your show. Appreciate it.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Thank you so much for making time. Let's talk about that then. Firstly, the background of the Women's Legal Center, what forms part of your feminist agenda and your reach and so on.
So the Women's Legal Centre is a public interest law centre that represents the rights of women in South Africa, particularly women who have been disenfranchised historically and really have very little access to justice. So the impetus of the organization is to provide free legal advice, but primarily is to constitutionally challenge any laws that we find or believe are discriminatory, particularly against women or disproportionately affect women. So our programs cover a number of areas, violence being this one in particular that I'm responsible for, but we also litigate around relationship rights, land rights, the right to work in a free and favorable and safe environment, and then sexual reproductive health and rights. So we really look at furthering the law as a tool to achieve equality, substantive equality for women, and realizing the constitutional rights of women, primarily in South Africa, but we also work together with partners regionally and internationally to hold the South African government in particular accountable to the commitments that they have made through legislation and obviously with the constitutional framework.
So then you launched the Nxme Him campaign. Please tell us more about this campaign and also maybe delve into the fact that it's spelled Nxme instead of Name.
Thanks, Asanda. So a few years ago, we were approached by a client in relation to a section in the Criminal Procedure Act. And this really set off in motion a constitutional challenge to this particular section, a section which the Women's Legal Centre has been concerned about for a number of years. But the facts of this case gave rise to the constitutional challenge. There is a section in the Criminal Procedure Act which very clearly states that the details of an offence may not be published, and that includes the name of the accused in matters that involve sexual offences. It also includes extortion. Through the litigation so far, it looks like the Minister of Justice is not going to oppose that. But she is opposing the constitutional challenge to the section that says that an accused rapist or anyone who is accused of any type of sexual offence may not be named until he has pleaded guilty or not guilty in court. Now, on one hand, this may sound reasonable to some people, but this does not apply to any other type of offence. So in other words, if an accused person faces charges of murder, armed robbery, fraud, any of those big offences, equally violent, equally serious offences, those accused may be named. And when we say may be named, may be published in the newspaper, communities know the identity, etc. So it's only for sexual offences that sexual offenders are protected by this piece of legislation. And we think that that is disproportionately discriminatory because the vast majority of complainants are women of sexual offences. And we also very strongly believe that a law of this nature impedes proper investigations. So what we've done is launch a campaign in support of this constitutional litigation case, which is in the Western Cape High Court in March of 2026. And this campaign is called Nxme Him. And really what it is, it's the first public disobedience campaign, which is quite absurd in and of itself, of allowing people to name the accused rapist before he has pleaded, but through an emoji code. So we've set up a website which is called nxmehim.com, but the name him is Nxme as opposed to Name, indicating that it's anonymous. So people can go onto that site, sign the petition, would be wonderful, but can also symbolically name the rapist that is an accused person before court who no one can name. Just to point out that if somebody does name him, publish his details, put it in a newspaper, talk about it, etc., put it on social media, that person can face criminal charges for a period of imprisonment if they're convicted of up to 3 years. So it's a serious offense. The campaign really aims to show that even if you name an accused, we have to go to such a great extent to anonymize that accused. It's a random emoji code that comes up that symbolically names him. It cannot be broken. It's totally and utterly safe. But it's a symbolic way of women, supporters of women, family members being able to name an accused. Very often they obviously know the name of the accused without being or falling foul of the law as it currently is. And that's really where we're trying to expose the absurdity of the law and then the absurdity of enabling women to name an accused before he's pleaded in a way that at least is only symbolic, but it shows the absurdity of the law.
What justification are our lawmakers giving for this anonymity? Why is anonymity protected for accused rapists, but not for suspects in other serious crimes, as you mentioned, like murder or armed robbery?
I think that's an absolutely central question. It's the central point to which we have, in our litigation, effectively questioned the Minister of Justice. And unfortunately, with respect, we believe that their approach is very disingenuous. Their approach in their papers has pointed out that the reason to keep his identity anonymous is to protect victims or complainants. We believe that this is an disingenuous approach. Firstly, because there are other sections in the Criminal Procedure Act with a little bit of tweaking actually guarantee the anonymity of a complainant in a sexual offence if she or he chooses to remain anonymous. So we believe that there are other sections. This section specifically refers to an accused. And yes, there are situations, and the media in particular are very, very sensitive to this, that if an accused's name or identity in any way does link him to a complainant, that accused will not be named if the complainant is not comfortable with her identity being revealed. So the reasons that the government or the Minister of Justice have given for protecting the identity of the accused under the guise of protecting the identity of the complainant, we really believe is misplaced and is not the real reason behind it. Unfortunately, we believe that the reason behind it is steeped in myths and stereotypes, that women lie, that women can't be believed until the prosecution is 100% sure that they will be able to proceed with the prosecution. And we believe this is just incorrect in the sense that it discriminates. It puts forward all of these myths that women shouldn't be believed and that they lie and that they're vindictive. And we've got to move away from that, given that there are so many sexual offences in this country. It really undermines the law and the law investigation and the law legal process of holding rapists and sexual offenders to account by allowing them to remain anonymous. It's worth pointing out that very often in matters of this nature, there can be a delay of between a year, 2 years, sometimes even 3 years before an accused rapist pleads, which means in all that time, he remains anonymous. And we believe actually can impede investigations. If people know that someone is before the courts on a claim against them of a sexual nature, there may very well be other victims who would come forward to support matters.
Absolutely. What are the next steps in this legal challenge?
So the good thing is that the pleadings have nearly come to an end, and we're just in the process of finalizing pleadings, and the matter is set down for the 3rd and 4th of March in 2026 in the High Court in the Western Cape. So that is the first point. the first hearing, as it were, although litigation has been going on for a couple of years now. We'll have a hearing, a 2-day hearing in the Western Cape High Court, hoping for a successful result in terms of declaring those sections unconstitutional, and then would hopefully be referred to the Constitutional Court for confirmation for the matter, or sorry, for those sections to be repealed.
How can the public support your efforts? Is there anything that we can do to repeal Section 152 2B?
Well, what we'd really like is, because first of all, a lot of people don't know this. So first of all, our intention is to really raise awareness around this and effectively how women are being discriminated and silenced yet again in an environment where gender-based violence, violence against women in South Africa has been recognized as an extraordinarily complex and very, very detrimental thing to our nation building, to the equality of women. So we would really appreciate the public to support us by signing our petition, which is on that nxmehim.com site with the nxme.com. And really for those people who would like to symbolically name a rapist who either in the past or currently was not able to be named, to really support that. We believe that if the Minister of Justice is aware of how many people are offended, horrified, cannot understand why this particular law discriminates so heavily against victims of sexual offences, where we should be helping victims of sexual offences in every possible way at the moment. We really hope that that will change the Minister's mind before we necessarily have to go into extended further litigation.
All right, so www.nxmehim.com.
That's it. Thank you very much.
Any social media handles or pages?
Hashtag Nxme Him. And then on our Instagram, you can follow us on the Women's Legal Centre, wlce.co.za is our website, and we're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, etc.
All right. Thank you so much again for your time, Advocate.
Thank you so much for giving us the time. Appreciate it.
Right. Advocate Bronwyn Pithy is a lawyer leading the case that is challenging the constitutional of this law, where the Criminal Procedure Act criminalises naming an accused rapist before they have pleaded in court, part of the Women's Legal Centre. And this is an African feminist legal organization that advocates for the rights of women, the equality of women. They do this through litigation, advocacy, education, research, and training.